Okay, as promised, we decided to do these videos to give people an idea of, with all these diversions and, river water supposedly, hurting ecosystems. And I think this was the time to tell a story about my father's take on building marsh in Louisiana, and an idea he had and patented, applied for the patents around early 2000s. And he got this idea from working dredges up in Washington State and New York State, and he went out there back when I was in high school and started running small hydraulic dredges on municipal waste ponds. So more or less dredging poop ponds, for cities. And he, being a Cajun and living in the marsh his whole life, and driving pilings and building docks and levees, and he was one of the first people to have a shrimp farm in this state, if not the first. He came up with these ideas from what he told me, building marsh from when he would drive a piling in the marsh, and whatever excess mud that built up from jetting the piling, by the next year would be a beautiful plume of fresh marsh grass that would grow in its spot without planting, without anything, just taking sediments from underground and raising the elevation to them, and naturally the marsh should take root on there. So he come up with an idea of putting a small hydraulic dredge on marsh buggy tracks, and he was awarded a patent from the the federal government for that. So he also had an idea to contain the dredge spoils in his own patented way of holding the dredge spoils. So he came up with this idea of holding dredge materials, dredge spoils, in his own patented form of a levee, but it was a containment webbing. He was told by everybody through the state that it could not work, it would not hold the pressure, and they pretty much had me convinced that it could never work, but they never convinced him that it couldn't work. Well, it was pretty much all the educated people with the state telling the quote unquote dumb coon ass that this can't work. This will not hold dredge materials. It will not hold the pressure of a dredge dredging into it. And in his own simple way, he would try to convince all these people with these big educations that what he had thought of would work. And he applied for, through some channel, he found out about this Quipper grant that was given out for demonstration projects for new technology. So he applied for it one year, and he missed it by a vote. By one vote, he didn't get the grant. Well, he didn't give up. He almost did, but he was convinced by a friend of his to reapply and try to get the grant again. So he reapplied the next year, and he got from Quipper a $1.3 million grant, from the federal government, more or less. And we thought, well, that's the break we've been waiting for. Now we get to prove that his idea either works or, end of story, it don't work. Okay. So in 2005, we were given enough money to buy the material not for the dredge or the marsh buggy, for the containment system of that dredge. So off of $1.3 million, we never got any money other than the exact amounts for the material and the labor to put the material together. And we were promised a job. So we got there within 2 days, we had our material ready. Okay. They convinced themselves that it couldn't work. So they were convincing every dredger that was going to dredge into it on these projects, more or less, that it wouldn't work. And we put this material in storage for about 6 years. It stayed in a container box for 6 years. And while it was in that container box, I mean, anything you store for 6 years is going to break down. So when 6 years later, probably 5 different jobs we went look at that we were ready to do. We have the grant. Y'all have the money. We have the material. We were awarded the grant. Let's do the project. Over 6 years and a bunch of different projects, they never awarded us a project to do. So finally, after 6 years, I guess, they were running out of that $1.3 million. Who knows what they did with it? Who knows where it went, but it never came to us. They finally gave us a job and told us that this job that we were going to do had a dredge material that was so nasty, that was so slushy, that they didn't think that it could work on our project, and they didn't think that it could work on their project. Okay? Well, they were right about 2 of those sites on that job. And I know firsthand because myself and my brother and a couple of workers went out there, all Cajun work, all Cajuns, went out there, and the first day of the job, we got laughed off the job site. They asked us how much material we could put out. And I told them I had only brought half of a 1,600-foot circle. And they said, do you really believe that you could put 800 feet of dredge material containing wall or, levee, more or less, in 1 day by hand? And we told them, well, we could put 10,000 foot out if we have enough boats and enough labor. But we were awarded a 1,600-foot circle. So by the end of the lunchtime on the second day, I had my 1,600-foot levee built. Me, my brother, a couple of workers. Just minimal labor, no heavy equipment, no diesel engines, no marsh buggy excavators, no hydraulics of any sort. Shackles, chain, crescent wrenches, and every day we got laughed at. This could never work. It'll never hold that. When that dredge starts dredging into this containment, y'all gonna be laughed out of the state. You say, well, that's why it's a demo project, and that's why we're gonna try it. So we get out there, we start dredging. There's 3 sites, and I'm gonna show you the 3 sites. I'm gonna show you conventional dredge site number 1. If you notice what the land looked like on each side of this spot that they dredged into. Okay, this is conventional site number 1. This is how they build marsh in this state. Levees, pump into the levee, build the spoils up as high as you can, let it de-water. Land builds, marsh grows. This is on Google Maps today. This is conventional site number 1. The way our state builds marsh conventionally, they built a pond. They dredged a very, very loose material, and they more or less just discharged it with 1 levee right here and land on each side. They damaged the area more than they built it. That's conventional site number 1. Okay, this is conventional site number 1. Now this is on a hard bank. You got good marsh here. You You got good marsh here. They built a levee around it, and they created another lake. All right. So instead of giving us a site up on that hard marsh site that would have worked beautifully because we didn't have to put a marsh buggy there or an excavator in there. We didn't have to build a levee that had to, hold this material. So they gave us this site right here with open water on all sides of our project. Open water. We put our 1,600 foot of containment and we started dredging. We waited probably 90 days for their levees to be passed to where they can dredge into those other two sites. We were ready in 2 days. We built an island in the middle of an open water bay with containment put together by hand, dreamed up by a Cajun, and we built that island, and it's still there today. The other two conventional sites built a lake. All right. So what I think should piss a lot of people off is, if there's something out there that works, that actually can build land a lot quicker than a marsh buggy excavator can build a levee, there's no recapping of levees to get them up to height. There's zero, heavy equipment involved. It's all a manpower by hand containment system that we were told could never work. We built land on that site, and conventional dredging and containment did not build land. We were told that they couldn't build land. We proved them wrong. They started dredging into our stuff. We built an island in about 5 days in an open water bay. I think by looking at those pictures and just, anybody that knows this marsh, you can see that building marsh in Louisiana is not the top priority for a lot of these people with the state. I think it's more or less they want to keep doing what they've been doing and building it the conventional way. And the conventional way might not be the right way. So when we got out there and we did this project and we built an island, and those other two projects that are the conventional way of building marsh completely flopped, we thought for sure, here we go. That's what we needed to do. We need to go out there and prove them wrong. Well, I think that going out there and proving them wrong was the worst thing we could have done, because we never received another phone call from the state or from anybody for that material. And that material worked, and it's reusable. And the reason we're making this video is because I promised my daddy on his deathbed that I wasn't going to let his patents and all his work go to waste. So in the last 3 or 4 years, we've been so busy with our businesses and keeping them running through this recession and bad oil field that we hadn't had time to do it. So I figured the best way is to put eyes on it. So if you care about the marsh, you care about the way it's being eroded away, and now they, doing these diversions and all to try to build marsh. There's a way to build this marsh, and it's not that hard, and we have the patents to do it, and it's just not being done. It's being, walked around and not talked about. But there's that island, I posted it a few days ago and I said it should piss you off. Well, if that don't piss you off, to know that somebody can go in an open water bay and build land with the worst materials possible is what they told us. That's the proof right there that we could save this marsh if they just wanted to, and I don't feel like they want to. And that's it.